Hello, and welcome to our newest episode of What's on the Horizon. I'm Lori Sharonbrock, and I'm here with Chris Schucker of Digital Horizons, and we are coming to you from the amazing Experience Center here at Digital Horizons. If anything looks pretty cool in here too, you should probably stop by. So as someone who is a small business owner myself and opening an actual location, you and I have been talking a lot about security and surveillance and the cameras and pixels, and it's all kind of just, it's overwhelming for someone who doesn't have any idea and has never really had to think about those things. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about surveillance cameras and what do you need to think about with them?
Sure. Well, it's a pretty broad topic. So I guess maybe the first thing to cover would be just to talk about placement and quantity.
Yep.
So the request that we get often is somebody wants security, and so then we have to clarify what they mean by security.
Yep.
Because that means many different things. Just like if you were to say, "Hey, I want a sandwich," what does that mean? To some people, that means a hot dog. So, yeah. So to clarify, we narrow it down, figure out they mean cameras or surveillance. Yes. And then what's usually followed up is usually somebody making a request for how many they need. Now, that number is often not correct because most people don't know what a camera is capable of viewing,
right? Or
some of the challenges that a camera has to deal with in order to view what it needs to view. So we'll get the request where somebody says, I just want 2 cameras, or they go the other way and I want 10 cameras. And so then our answer is usually to narrow it down to what do you want to view? What is important? What are you trying to see? Because the quantity of the camera is irrelevant unless you have the context of what you're trying to view. So we find out what they want to view, and then from there, we take the other information that hopefully they have. Either if they're building, there's a set of construction plans with elevation drawings, or we have to do a site visit and look at things in person to see the real world scenario of where they're going to be installed. And then go back to them and say, okay, you said that you wanted to see these things, and we feel you need X number of cameras. Sometimes they align. But often either there's a lot less or a lot more that are needed, and applying the information of what they want to see and how they want to see it helps us make the recommendation of how many cameras and where they need to be.
Yeah, I think that was what was eye-opening for me is when we finally got in this space that I was putting together, because I described something to you, and my description and my vision is probably is a totally different perspective, and I was like, oh, I think we need 10 cameras. And you're like, you need like 2.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I think it's so important to have a site visit to get that visual to say, no, actually this camera is so powerful. It can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then, when it came to exterior, I was completely clueless. So is there a difference between interior and exterior camera placement?
Yeah. What you need to see is different inside versus outside. And really it's the main difference when we make a recommendation in camera, it's largely, there's 2 main factors that come into play. One of the main ones is the budget, because when you're talking about cameras, one of the differentiating factors is amongst other factors is the resolution of the camera, the sensor inside and everything that goes into it, with its ability to capture an image. That is largely the determining factor in the cost. And so if the budget is tight or there's a constraint, then you can scale back on resolution. The drawback being when you're using, let's say you're recording outside, you want as high a resolution as possible.
Yes.
So that's probably the main distinguishing factor is on the outside cameras, you want a higher resolution, and then inside you can get away with a little bit lower resolution because you're often capturing, a closer space. You're not needing as much detail. But if budget isn't a concern, or the quantities of cameras and everything, I guess that all ties into budget. More resolution is always better.
Yeah.
So it's that's the main factor.
Is there a minimum resolution you should go with? Like if you're just searching around and looking like, and you're like, oh, this one's a 2 and this one's an 8. Is there that much difference?
Not really. I think, with your playback, I would say you probably don't want anything less than a 2 megapixel or a 1080p camera. When you start getting into 4 and 8 megapixel, which are 4K or just under or half of 4K, I guess. The minimum I would say is probably at least a 1080p camera, and then any higher is just a matter of does it work?
Sure.
Can it fit the budget?
Are there certain bells and whistles to look out for? You and I talk a lot about, especially when it comes to TVs. A lot of things end up being more about the marketing than actual function.
Yeah.
Are there things to look out for when, looking at those cameras like this isn't as big of a deal as their marketing makes it out to be?
Well, not really. I mean, there's not really a lot of things that get marketed in cameras with outside of resolution, things like that. Some of the things that are pushed are analytics and notifications and things like that. The cameras that we work with, the main distinction that we have are when it comes to outdoor cameras, because we're providing it, we're warranting it, we're putting our name on it, we're standing behind the camera. To us, it has to be a wired camera. There aren't any wireless cameras that we've yet felt comfortable putting our name on that doesn't come with a lot of likely hassles. Not that the wireless cameras that are out there can't work, but not to the level that we feel comfortable standing behind.
Sure.
So that's the main thing for us is we generally speaking don't install the wireless camera. But then the other thing is, and this is even more applicable in the difference between a wired and a wireless camera is it built to last in Minnesota weather?
Yes.
So the cameras that we use, they're actually rated for, when we use an outdoor version, it's rated for at least 20 below, sometimes as low as 40 below. And what that means is not that it operates at that temperature, which it does, is that it will operate from a cold start at that temperature.
Oh yeah.
And ultimately what that means is that if your power is out and goes out in the winter and it comes back on and the camera has frozen or gotten to the outside temperature, which happens pretty quickly given where they're usually at, it will turn back on and go back to operation at as low as that temperature. Yeah. And the main thing that happens when you have a camera that goes from cold to warm or, has cycles like that in an outdoor temperature, if the temperature isn't maintained through operation, is you can get buildup of frost and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the determining factor for us on outdoor cameras and the thing to look for is it actually rated for outdoor weather? When you look at wireless cameras, they're most often battery operated, which if you've ever used a battery operated product outside, the batteries don't last. There's lots of problems with that. And then just the camera itself, is it rated for that temperature and, the battery lasting. So it's, that's one of the main reasons that, we only use wired cameras is they're not, wireless cameras just aren't built to hold up, and we haven't found anything that we can stand behind.
Look at. I mean, and I think all of this, like really to summarize is, I know, at least as far as I was concerned, I was really grateful to be working with someone like you. Like trying to navigate any of that on my own, I absolutely would have made the wrong decision.
Maybe.
It's a lot to think about, and having someone to guide you through that process is worth every hour, every ounce of time. Like if you have something that you care about, like a beautiful home on a lake or a simple home in a nice, quiet neighborhood or your business, and you want to protect them, it's a worthwhile investment to not fall for a ring. Yeah. They're great products. I'm just saying, there's a difference.
Yeah. They're made to, work in a large swath. It's a product that's made to be sold to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And they have their place. And I don't have a knock on any particular wireless product because I feel like, they fill a niche.
Certainly.
But when it comes to us providing it and having to warranty it and stand behind it, I would love for a wireless product to exist that we felt doing that, because it would solve a lot of our problems.
Sure.
But it's just not quite there yet to our expectations.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I have talked about that before too. I mean, there's just something to be said for customer service with an off-the-shelf product.
Yeah. Doesn't exist.
No, it really doesn't. And the ability to be able to go back and view your images and know where those images are stored. I mean, that's a whole other episode, which I think we've talked about. But there is something valuable about having a service provider like Digital Horizons involved in that to help get you through it, because it really can be a lot to think about. And speaking from experience, you guys just make it a lot easier. Any other last good nuggets for us to think about?
Not really. I think that, I mean, like I said at the start, it's a very broad topic, and there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, as far as the camera selection, that's a good starting point.
Yeah. And I think talking to Chris and any of the staff here at Digital Horizons is an excellent place to start, especially if you're just dipping your toe in to try and figure that out. So if you have questions about that or want to talk about surveillance cameras and the differences in placement, give Chris a call here at
218-330-4140.
Yep. And then you can obviously come in and see this cool place. Or check out their website. It's new, looks fabulous, runs really well, digitalhorizonsmn.com. And you can submit your questions or emails right from that site too. So thank you so much for this today, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.